In this video, I'm going to be sharing a Drumline video review that I did for an ensemble that submitted a request for feedback on Facebook to me. I recorded a live commentary based on what they had sent me. Now, this video was sent to me later in the season, so they didn't have a lot of time to correct a lot of things, so you'll see that my commentary is based on that. But what I did suggest a lot is for next season and planning purposes, which at the time of this recording is the time that ensembles, at least in my opinion, should be starting to plan for their next season, plan for their marching band show, and think about things like the things that I talk about in here when it comes to designing their show and their drill. So hopefully you can gain a few tips, learn some insights, maybe even spark some ideas of your own for your own shows when you're designing this season. So without further ado, enjoy. We're going to watch the show together, and I will just kind of stop it and talk about stuff along the way. So let's get into it.
Take the field for competition.
Well, that's really unfortunate that they put that warm-up area so close to the field. That sound is bleeding straight over into your show. Anyway, side note, nothing you can do about that, but all right, so I don't know exactly what the bigger picture is, and this camera angle is not up high enough for me to see the design here with how the pit is positioned. But my first question would be, why have the pit the way they are on the field? Okay, there's a couple reasons why I think that. Let me put it this way: the standard setup, across most states and most areas is having the pit in the front of the field. And there's a reason for that, because the pit listens straight back to the ensemble, and whoever's behind them, they're at the center of the field, which is where the sound is coming to, and comes straight from the center of the field off and up to the press box. Okay, so when we have the front ensemble in a different position, because the original kind of OG position works so well, it would be out. In my mind, you have to have a good reason for it. If it's design, if it's for visual design purposes, if it's for timing purposes, there has to be a good reason for it. Watched the show a couple times, and I feel like there are some moments that happen over here with the prop, and those are cool. But the first thing I noticed was that the concert bass drum is facing the end zone. And when you set up the concert bass drum, or any drums, but particularly bass drums and concert basses, those drums are directional, which means the sound goes a certain way. So when you hit the concert bass, the sound is going forward and back. And if the concert bass is facing the end zone, which it is on this video, then that sound is not making it up to the judges. It's not making it to the crowd or the press box or anything like that. So that would be the first area of concern. The second one is, timing wise and volume wise, it looks like you guys are mic'd up. So I guess the volume's not really an issue, but this also limits the visual ability of the band. And the pit can actually also hide some of the flags and stuff on the sidelines. And if you'll notice here in the beginning, you've got a lot of equipment here on the sideline. And I'm wondering if the pit was there, if that wouldn't, be as visually distracting. Now, I know part of it is having these little vignettes here, these little ensembles near the pit, maybe near the microphones. But I think even having them, at one side, or having the ensembles on the field and the pit on the sidelines would still make just as much sense, if not more sense, and alleviate any other issues that you might be having. So, this is part of the design of the show, but if you have any input in the design, or if the band director ends up watching this, it would just be worth it to make sure that you're doing this with a purpose. And I may not just, be understanding the purpose here, and that's okay. But um, I didn't see it. I didn't see anything that would. I was like, oh, that makes sense. That's why they're out there. I have put. I've been in a band that put the pit in the middle of the field, basically, and it was a disaster the entire time. It ruined the entire visual effect. It ruined the visual abilities of the band, and there was no reason we did it other than we thought it would be cool. And so when I see something like this, I don't want other people to fall into that trap. Um, it's so hard to come back. So planning for next year or whatever, just something to think about. Okay. Yeah, playing wise in the very beginning, those bass drum notes, we just got to get those together. So I don't know exactly what's happening here, but I would venture to say it's just something we need to rehearse a lot. And 1, 2, and 3, and 4, 1, 2, and making sure that they play those together. This might have been an earlier season video, so it might be cleaner now. But that's the first statement that your drum line's making, so you really want to make sure that's a good one. Make sure they're playing the center of the drum, all that kind of stuff. And I'll go ahead and say it here, but I'll probably reemphasize later. Anytime the bass drums are marching, since they're sideways, basically they're pointed towards the end zone. You want to, if at all possible, have them keep a straight leg, their legs as straight as possible when they're marching. Right now, they have that kind of bend where they look like they're kind of squatting down almost. Totally normal in high school bands. Okay, I've seen it so many times. So it's not like they're doing something crazy. But if you want more of a professional look, which is the main thing at this point in the season and into next year that I would be focusing on, is the look and how they play. Not necessarily what they play, but how they play and how they look first. That would be one thing I'd start with, is seeing if you can get them to straighten their legs. That will also help them make bigger moves easier if their legs are straighter, if they're not squatted down. And it will improve their marching overall. Have them be a little bit forward and their legs as straight as possible, especially when they are going straight backwards, and then, of course, when they're crabbing as well. Hey guys, just wanted to jump back in here real quick. If you are enjoying this content and you would like to see more stuff, or you would like to have your own review of your own ensemble this year, I have an online community called Directing the Line. It is a community that is just for directors to get percussion support all year long. Right now, you can get access to it with a complete audition system to start your season off right. I've got exercises, I've got a game plan to implement immediately, and I've got a course for your students to go through to get ready for the auditions before they happen. So if you're interested, I'm going to leave a link in the description below so you can check that out, and I look forward to seeing you there. Yeah, I think that was a buzz roll in the bass drums, and it sounded like blah 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 blah. See if we can get those buzzes a little bit more connected, and have the multiple bounce press there last a little bit longer, as opposed to just being blah, 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 blah. And maybe even play it lower, like closer to the heads, so at a lower dynamic, so that you get more of the kind of the tone, the long tone of the bass drum, instead of the ba, 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 like the sticks hitting the drum, or the mallets hitting the drum, I should say. Entrances with, especially the shot, okay, that needs to be so crisp and so clean. Make sure somebody back there is dudding the entrance. I will assume you know what that means, but it's something to give time. So a vocal duh, 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 very staccato, very short, and that way, before that entrance, the measure before, duh, 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 chuck. and make sure that that shot lines up together. You don't want to hear the whack, whack. You want to hear pop. Okay, so something that could make your front ensemble um, look more professional. A lot of high level corps do, and high level bands do, is they will clear the boards when the mallets are not playing. So after they finish a phrase, blah blah blah, and then you got the drums, carrying it in the background. Take the mallets and put them down, okay, while they're not playing, and then the measure before, or however many counts they need to bring them up. I would not, do this big slow thing. It would be pretty quick, like 1, 2, 3, prep, and then play the next passage. That will look a little bit more professional than leaving the mallets just kind of sitting there, not doing anything and holding them in place. It also, there was the marimba player there was kind of straightening his jacket and doing all this kind of stuff. That will alleviate doing that if the hands are down. I'm gonna talk more about the playing when I can see all of it. I do want to make some comments about that, but right here I would have the drum line have a more uniform approach on how they're holding their sticks at set position. This is what I would define as set position. So if they're sometimes the pinky, will rest on the rim or have it maybe an inch above, but right now it's just kind of like sitting there and both hands are on the rim. That looks a little I don't want to say like sloppy, but it looks a little unorganized. I feel like it needs to be defined, and you want a strong look. You want a strong appearance instead of kind of being laid back and leaned back and that kind of deal. So, however you define it, I would work on defining that and make sure when they bring those sticks in, it's there. And it's there every time. The sticks are flat and they are at set position, and the only thing that's moving right now is their feet, right? Because their upper body should be still while they're moving, and just they can focus on that, but build a good habit of keeping those sticks in place. And just a side note, I would take the sticks the same way. Honestly, it's a pet peeve of mine personally, but I would want the sticks to look the same because I want everything to look the same. I want them to do the same things. And I know the one student picks up the tenors here in a little bit. It doesn't matter. I would have everything be taped white or black. If you want to do black, that's fine. But probably one of those two. Just keep it simple. Keep it clean and uniform is the main thing. Simple, clean, and uniform. Okay, now here's where I want to really hone in. Okay, and this is probably visually one of the biggest hurdles that I think you guys are facing right now. And don't know if you've gotten any comments from judges about this, but I want to kind of talk about a couple concepts. All right, so visually, when we're looking at this transition, the eye is drawn to the fastest and biggest moving thing on the field. Okay, fastest first, biggest second. So that means that whatever, if a student is running across the field, you can almost guarantee that everybody will be watching that person. Okay, that is not what you want at this point in the show. You want to watch the band and the guard and everything else. You don't want to see this person running over, throwing their drum down, taking their hat off, and grabbing the bassoon. Really cool that your bass drummers play or he plays bassoon. That's awesome. Uh, and I'm thrilled that you work this into the program as a whole. I think that's really cool. This part, I think, it's hard because of where the drum line is. Okay, so one option would be to move the drum line over. Okay, that would probably be one of the better options as far as, I would even center him like on the band. You can move him over at least 4 steps, if not more, and kind of center them, on the whole band instead of being centered on the whole ensemble. So since the guard is on one side, you could stack the drum line on the other side and kind of even it out visually. That's one option, probably the hardest one to do. The other option would be to have him walk slower so that all of the other contrary motion draws the eye and they don't notice him going over there. When he gets over there, and I say he, but when the student gets over there, I would have them take the drum off the carrier so that they can leave the carrier on and leave their hat on, unless that interferes with the bassoon. I don't think that. Let's see. I want to see if he has to strap the. Okay, so he's already got the harness on, right, for the bassoon, I think. Okay, so if he already has the harness on, if you can find a way to keep that bass carrier on and just set the drum down, that keeps him from throwing all that off and throwing the hat off and everything else. They've got a little bit more time than what they used here, so they can take some more time. I would even say, if possible, keep the bassoon behind the prop and set the drum down back there and put the bassoon back there, and then have him just walk out slowly from behind the prop. And that will keep the visual distraction low. You can't avoid it altogether, but there is nothing drawing your eye away from it right now, and he's moving, or he should be moving too fast across the field. Okay, so once again, we've got the vibraphone player running. Try not to run, because any fast movement is going to draw the eye over there, and you really want the eye to be over here with the guard and the band. You don't. We're done with the moment with the ensemble, and now we want the focus to be over here. If we start running around over there with the getting the drum and everything, very distracting. Okay, have them put the drum on while they're down. So kneel down, put the drum on, put the hat on, and then walk out here. The drum line's so far away. If they didn't have to go so far, that would be best. If we can't change that right now, I would suggest walking out there. Don't run. Put it on. Walk slowly out there. If you miss the first part of where you're supposed to play, I think that would be more acceptable than having them run to their set while everything else is still. Okay. The other idea is to bring that last set. They're not playing anything, so bring the battery over here behind the pit, pick the bass drummer up, and then use this form right here to move, since they're move back to the set that they need to be in. So it's going to take some time to adjust that drill, but that would look so much better to have the drum line over here, pick the bass drummer up, essentially, let them get in the form, and then move back to the back or wherever the next set, that makes sense for them to go to. It's a really soft moment. So if that bass drummer was not in the music, for this particular part, I don't think it's going to detract that much and would be visually better than seeing them run out there. And this would be perfect because they could just keep moving across the field. Now the same thing just happened with the snare drummer running off to get the quads. So, it's one of those things where you've got to work with what you got out there. Can we play quads the whole show? That would be something that would be for next year. I'm not going to change it this year, but in a time like this, can we play quads the whole show? Can we put a snare like attachment on the quads so that you can still get that voice and you can still have the quad voice out there as well? Really don't like, I would really suggest for your score's sake and design's sake to not have them just run off and run back on. But honestly, the whole problem could be solved if you brought the drum line over when we were talking about with the bass drummer playing the bassoon. If you brought them over behind the pit, the quad or the snare drummer could come and change out quads from behind the pit. Everybody regroups, and that would be, if they do it slow, walk slowly, face backwards, that would be more, or from behind the prop. Man, I'm spitballing here. I'm thinking on my feet. Any ideas that, and I hope this kind of sparks some ideas for you. But yeah, having them come down, get the drums from behind the pit, or go over far enough so they can get the drum behind the prop and then move as a group would be so much less visually distracting than just running off and running back on. I would really try to avoid that. I'm not sure if that prop in the back moves, but we could put it behind there too. A drum sitting back there wouldn't be visually distracting, probably wouldn't even be noticed. Now I'm gonna reserve the comments for the playing when I can see it and I can tell more about what's going on. If the drumline doesn't do marching basics with the band, I would change that. Some of the band members have really good looking marching technique and straight legs when they're going backwards, and that's exactly what we need in the bass line. So just something to think about. Like this flute player right here, just for example, let's back up and look at her. Well, that's too far. Right there, this flute player. Yes, I know, scaring a flute. Drums are heavy. They are, but that's the technique. I mean, that's a lot closer to what I'm talking about as far as coming across the field and being very straight. At the bent leg, it just there's a look that you want to go for, and if you want to look professional and high level, that is the look to do it. It also helps with actually marching sets correctly. Helps with weight distribution. Okay, so as you can tell, those visual moments were just the biggest, let's put it this way, the biggest potential for your program to gain some points or not lose visual points at the expense of the drumline. And I think it's cool that we are incorporating the drumline into different instruments, and obviously our membership is limited. I've been there. I know exactly what that's like. And so, making sure that we have the right voices and everything. I would just, when planning for a show like this, I would just carefully consider, what's needed. Can we deal with one snare and one tenor? Can we just use two snares? If we change it, let's make sure we think about how we're going to change it as opposed to just throwing it in. And, some of that is on the drill writer. I don't know who writes the drill, but it would be a conversation. It would just be something to think about for next year and when planning. Some of this if you need a band-aid, like I said, maybe change a little bit of drill in the drum line, bring them over so that's not so distracting, the change. You can use the pit since they're out there, use them to hide the stuff. That would be a reason to have them out there. And other than that, I think the show is cool. I like the music. But I think that the visual thing, if you could fix that, that would talk about a lot.